Hello, everyone. My name is John Ferretti. I am a former executive board member of TW Local 100 and one of the co-founders of the Local 100 Fight Back Coalition here in New York City. And this is episode 12 of the Working Class Power Hour podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Eric Basir, Chicago ATU Local 308 executive board member. And we're unfortunately we missed a week or two, but we're trying to get back to a regular presence in terms of a weekly podcast. And we just wanted to open up the discussion with somewhat of a recap of what's going on in Chicago. After that, we'll discuss it somewhat and also about things that are going on here in New York. Then we want to have a wider discussion about the political environment right now and a very important election that's going on that will determine a lot of our democratic rights, our trade union rights. And we want to talk about what working class people should be thinking about in that election. So in any case, Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. And
Thank you.
it's great to be with everybody. Um, John, would you please bring up the photos?
Sure. Let me just.
So, hey there, Yuri. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you share everywhere. So, here in Chicago, we have the lovely Democratic National Convention, another party of politicians just going on. Everybody's so excited, feeling so good about what? I don't know. But one thing's for sure, the ATU Chicago union reps and international officials showed up. Plenty of hotel days were racked up as a benefit for the 200,000+ salaries that we pay them. And here, from left to right, I don't know who the person on the left is, but the man with the glasses and the brown shirt, that's our international president, John Costa. Next to him is our local 308 president, Penny McCoach. And next to her is local 241 president, Keith Hill, the anointed one. And I didn't make that up. That's what he calls him. He says he was anointed by the blood of Christ.
Who is he? Eric Adams?
Uh, no, this is one of our Chicago geniuses. But
Oh,
yeah, that's our local 241 president. Boy, I tell you, God has blessed him to apparently be the best boss agent and punish the members who do not obey him.
so he's blessed.
Courtesy.
God has blessed him to keep blessing you with boss loving. Is that
Yeah,
what?
just these guys are just something. But and there's our international vice president, Yvette Trujillo, and then our secretary treasurer, international secretary treasurer, Ken Cash Money Kirk. And they're just there at the convention. Doing what? We don't know, but there's plenty of photo ops. Let's go ahead and hit the next one.
All right.
Or can I do it?
Let me see. Let me go back.
I think
What
I
next
can
one?
control it actually. Let me try.
Can you?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay, good.
Now, here is at the right, that's King Costa, our international president, John Costa. And next to him, in the colorful blouse, is our former secretary treasurer of Local 308, who, despite her $135,000 salary, continued to grovel and bootlick the politicians, and apparently getting us something. We don't know what. But one thing's for sure, we have possibly hundreds of union members who she never signed up for the union, and now they're being charged hundreds and hundreds of dollars of back dues, and I'm dealing with that, trying to get that credited back to them. And just always there with the politics, always cheesing and all this stuff. Again, what is this doing for the members? None of them can tell us. Let me hit the next one. I don't know who that is in the middle, but we've got Keith the Anointed One Hill on the left, John the King Costa on the right, holding up their fists. And that's what they been doing to the members in Chicago. Just giving us a fist, all over the place.
Well,
While we're suffering with workplace injuries, we're suffering with no paid leave whatsoever. We're suffering with managers totally disrespecting and spitting on our collective bargaining agreement, our labor rights, our rights as workers. These people are celebrating in Chicago, doing what? We don't know. But they're
they're celebrating the no strike clause, aren't they?
And we were going to talk about that too. Apparently, Keith, the Anointed One Hill, told the members that he arranged a no strike clause, a no strike agreement, not clause, a no strike agreement with the city of Chicago and the ATU sitting there, and the ATU International celebrating this crap. And there they are. There's our president on the right, Local 308 president, Penny Police Person McCoach. I call her police person because, she calls the cops on members. You know how it goes, John. And there's Harris.
Don't feel bad. My union president called the cops on us when we were campaigning against a sellout contract, and he said he only cared about buses, and we don't have no rights to be in the depot talking to bus workers.
Woo! I love that too. When I go to the bus garages, they're like, "Get him out of here! He's rail. He's rail. He's a rail worker." Ah! And Harris Walls signs, "There's our great savior." Right? We're gonna vote and hope that they're not gonna screw us like they did the railroad workers last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Finally, I don't know if y'all can read this, but there's the ATU International saying, "Thank you, Local 241 and Local 308 members for not striking." Just kidding. But that's exactly what it means, John. You know what that means, John. You know what that means.
Sure.
Thank you for keeping the city moving this week. And that's what they were so scared. I tell you, you could see it. Every executive board and membership meeting, we got to keep them quiet. We got to keep them quiet. And then we have West Cruz, vote Trump, Hispanics for Trump. Vote for none of those bums. Trump or Kamala. But anyways, I wanted to also discuss a couple quick things locally.
All right. Do you want me to take this down?
Yeah, thank you.
Just take it down. Okay. Hold
on.
Just remove that.
We have in the largest shop, rail maintenance shop, we have been complaining about these lift jacks that hold the trains up, and they're just back breaking, back wrenching. And lo and behold, we just had a major serious injury. One of our brothers hurt. Who knows how long he's going to be out. I can imagine it will be months. And of course, the Cheap Transit Authority will try to deny him workman's comp and write him up. We have another worker in the so-called second chance program. The poor brother was telling the managers, "There's a slipping hazard right here, right in front of the rail car. This place right here, this place right here." And there, lo and behold, after telling them repeatedly, he falls. And he's so messed up and hurt, he said, "I'm going to come to work anyways." And they write him up. They write him up with a safety violation.
What?
Yeah.
He's the safety violation or another safety? What do you mean by that?
He gets one safety violation for being injured at work. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, and he's in a second chance program, that where if you have a record, they give you a quote second chance, but it's really not. It's just disgusting, the management we have. And this happens while they're celebrating and partying with these scumbag politicians. The CTA is having us remove graffiti. The maintenance workers were removing graffiti from the outside, you know, the big burners, the big murals,
Mhm.
and removing it at one of the shops, 98th Street shop, doing it outside with live 600 volt DC third rail. It's insane. It's insane. Um, we had a suicide. One of a bus operator was real depressed or whatever's going on with bullying, jumped in front of a train wearing the uniform. You know, in the union leadership, my fellow officers ain't saying a damn thing about this. Nothing. It's just disgusting. You know, we're so at the CTA, the MTA, SEPTA, BART, MARTA, wherever it is, it's the same damn thing.
Mhm.
Our working conditions are making us sick, making us lose our mind, stressing us out,
Yeah.
and we're snapping and doing terrible, terrible things to ourselves and our coworkers and
Yeah.
other and riders.
I don't know if you heard, but recently there was an MTA cleaner who was desperate for time off with his wife because of something that she was going through, and he cut himself and pretended as if he was slashed by some of a rider, and this was splashed all over the newspaper with his picture and interviews talking about the mental stress that he was going through, and I haven't seen a goddamn word from our union about it. Now, obviously, there's little that's going to be able to be done to save his job, given the situation that we face in terms of collective bargaining, and like for a false statement, they can automatically fire somebody over something like that. But not even an attempt to explain that although what he did was not in his right mind, it clearly is related to the conditions that we face. There's no attempt in the middle of an election campaign where they're saying they're going to represent us and provide, accountable leadership and model, and explain what we do and explain why we deserve to be making the wages we're making and the benefits and all that kind of stuff. In the middle of an election where they're about to showcase what kind of leadership they want to provide for the union, they have nothing to say about the conditions we face. They have nothing to say about the report from NYU that talks about the horrific air quality conditions in the subway, where, we always knew that our coworkers live like 2, 3, 4 years after they retire, given the toxic stew of poisoned air that we constantly recycle in the subway system every time a train comes through and every time a train leaves a station. And this is the same in buses. It's the same in car equipment. The solvents we use, the cleaning products we use. And there's just no attempt at all to fight back or expose or use the scientific and medical evidence that they should have been demanding all along. It should be in our contract. It should be in our contract that there has to be a scientific and safety and health survey every year, and that there has to be consequences for employers that continually turn a blind eye to these unsafe working conditions. And when somebody goes out and does the work for them without being paid by the union, without management being forced to pay for this, they still can't get up off their ass and use it as a bat to beat the employer with and to force them to change the way they do business. And, a lot of what we're going to be talking about tonight is the role of bosses, agents, but also the difference between a boss's agent running an institution like a trade union, which is actually a working class institution built by the blood, sweat, tears, and struggle of thousands and millions of workers to establish their own voice, to establish an institution that's actually supposed to represent them. Eric and I will tell you that we have no patience whatsoever and no support whatsoever for any boss agent ever holding a position of power in our institution, in a working class institution that we built. And, the election of boss lovers to a position of power in a working class institution is a disgrace to what it means to have any pride in being working class, to having any solidarity with our class. And it destroys everything that we try to do. And Eric is showing you a bit of that by showing you what they really have time for.
Yeah.
Kissing the ass of the
Party.
bosses and banning strikes and being good little boys and girls and hoping to get goodies and crumbs from the table. But
I wanted to add that,
better.
Educating the members, like you said, the stuff we're doing at no charge to the union treasury or the management, the stuff we're organizing locally, and it's just they're totally allergic to it. But we persist. I'm doing the online steward classes because guess what? Our union president wants to do it like once every 3 years. No, I say do it every month. So we do it, and John and I, everyone should know this. And John, we got to make it clear because there's not a lot of time. We're running for office.
Yeah.
I'm an officer right now for the shops, but I'm running for president.
Yeah.
John's going for executive board.
Yeah, I'm going to be running for executive board on a local wide opposition slate. We're going to be making announcements about that soon, but some members may know that one of the members of the slate that we were trying to run with has just been terminated by the MTA in retaliation for union activity. Tramel Thompson.
Ah, Tramel, damn.
Yeah. So we're in the process of trying to deal with the blowback from that, and also how to make sure that we have a local wide slate, and also how we can defend Tramel against nothing but a retaliation for exposing vicious bosses and what they do to our members. Whatever differences we've ever had with Tramel, we've always supported him when he was being attacked because of the work he does on behalf of the membership.
Yep.
And we also stand against any kind of disgusting violence organized by an institution that we're supposed to be proud of, that we're supposed to have faith in, that puts our members in the hospital. That's not a union that any of us can be proud to.
That was the VP, right?
That was Canela Gomez, the VP.
Yeah, beat up Tramel. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't a fair fight. He got jumped. And the other guy who jumped him is 6'8" and 350 pounds.
Typical.
And Tramel was at work, and Canelo was looking to stir up trouble and could have walked right out of that room and defused the situation. But like a cop, like someone who's power drunk with authority, he just couldn't let the situation pass.
No.
And he had to provoke an incident. And this piece of human garbage, who currently is the highest elected representative of our department, is running for office and then mocking those who run for office while they're assaulted or out on comp, or for whatever reason are unable to work in their job titles. And this is a guy who was limping around with a cast and a cane when he was running for RTO VP last time, but sees no hypocrisy and no shame in saying that members like myself who've been assaulted by customers while working for the MTA, not the first time, the second time, and many of us have had even more experience with that we should hurry back and work real hard in unsafe conditions for the MTA and forget about our injuries and suck it up. But that's a union rep. That's a boss-loving piece of garbage.
Yes,
and he disgraces the name of our local every second that he holds that position. And members need to understand that this is your chance to actually provide some consequences for abusive, thuggish people who set us up for attack and are nothing but Simon Pure representatives of boss logic. He can never fight the bosses, because if he ever goes back to his tools, he can lose his job, and he knows that. And so he's going to carry water for them and kiss their ass and do whatever they tell him to do. And that has to end. And that's why they're attacking Tramel, because Tramel was the best chance to get rid of him. And we need to know what time it is and and pay attention during elections, because elections have consequences and elections matter. And it's not about loving the person you're voting for. It's not about believing all of their promises. It's about defending ourselves against those who would destroy us. And so using that as a way to pivot to the wider political questions. Yep. You guys know what's been going on with the Democratic Convention. There's been a mass movement in this country for over 300 days. I believe it's like 320 days since October 7th, called the Uncommitted Movement, that has mobilized hundreds of thousands of voters throughout the country in the Democratic Party to demand an end to the war in Gaza. It's not a war. Let's be honest. It's a genocide is what it is. It's ethnic cleansing. It's apartheid. It's genocide. And it was going on long before October 7th, but the consequences of the most recent incarnation of Israeli genocide is the potential death of over 180,000 Palestinians. According to the Lancet, a very well respected medical and scientific journal in England. And that includes not just those who have already been confirmed dead, about 40,000, not just including the tens of thousands who are buried under rubble, but also including the toll, if nothing is done, in terms of the lives that will be lost from polio. Yeah, you heard that right. Polio is what we are dealing with because of the lack of clean water, because of the sanitation conditions, because of many things, because of the air quality, all sorts of things. Diseases that were vanquished are coming back and revisiting horrors upon innocent civilians, children, women, people who have absolutely nothing to do with Hamas. And so, in any case, this Uncommitted Movement has led a battle across this country to never allow the Democratic Party to be silent about this and to demand real change. They are demanding a freezing of weapons sales to Israel, the immediate end of all weapons sales to Israel, and at the very least, conditioning aid to Israel, making sure the worst of the weapons can't get there. And let's be honest about the fact that if that happened, this war or this occupation, this genocide would end tomorrow. And it's because all of the weapons that they use are all U.S. weapons. They need parts to replace on those weapons in order to continue to keep doing what they're doing. They desperately need the continued support of the U.S. government. And the U.S. government, despite knowing all of this, despite knowing all of these figures, just transferred over $20 billion worth of more aid under Joe Biden. And this was after all of the lies about they're working tirelessly towards a ceasefire in Gaza. Every ceasefire they propose is a lie, because it's not a permanent ceasefire, and it doesn't actually guarantee that Israel won't pick up and do what they've been doing anytime they feel like it. And the Israelis are the ones who are blocking any kind of peace deal, and they have been from the beginning. But I want to play a video of a Palestinian activist who was denied the right to speak at the Democratic National Convention, even after they refused to even hear the demands for the end of military aid, conditioning aid, or any real solution to actually enforce a ceasefire in Gaza. They said, at least let us have a speaker at the Democratic National Convention. And they absolutely refused to allow her to speak, even though she's an elected representative in the state of Georgia in the state legislature. So they didn't let her speak, so we're going to let her speak. And it's important that her voice be heard. So I'm going to share my screen and play this video. It's a short video just to frame some of the discussion, because we have a much wider discussion to get into.
And tonight joining us to talk to us about this really significant movement around Palestine is Georgia State Representative Ruah Rahman. And we wanted to invite you on first to share a portion of your speech that you were going to share had you been given the opportunity to address the platform at the DNC. So we'd love for you to share that and talk to you a little bit.
Yeah, so the speech is actually very short. We were not very greedy in our ask. Unfortunately, that's just the way things go.
How much time did you ask for?
I mean, originally we asked for 5 minutes and we got back and we're told, keep it down to 2. So we did. We tried to work in good faith. The whole point was to bridge the gap between what we were seeing between voters and the party.
Yeah.
We're not here to party poop on anyone's party. We really just wanted to be able to walk out of here. Again, we came with a policy ask, but we said maybe we can at least get a symbol.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, didn't get that.
Well, I'm thankful for you to be here. And, I have to say, when we were leaving last night and saw and heard the cries of the protesters, it really hit home. My dear friend, Ta-Nehisi Coates, wrote a wonderful piece in Vanity Fair. I hope everybody reads it. But we are honored to give you this platform tonight and would love to hear your speech.
Thank you. My name is Rua Roman, and I'm honored to be the first Palestinian elected to public office in the great state of Georgia, and the first Palestinian to ever speak at the Democratic National Convention. My story begins in a small village near Jerusalem called Suba, where my dad's family is from. My mom's roots trace back to El Khalil or Hebron. My parents, born in Jordan, brought us to Georgia when I was 8, where I now live with my wonderful husband and our sweet pets. Growing up, my grandfather and I shared a special bond. He was my partner in chief, whether it was sneaking me sweets from the bodega or slipping a 20 into my pocket with that familiar wink and a smile. He was my rock, but he passed away a few years ago, never seeing Suba or any part of Palestine again. Not a day goes by that I don't miss him. This past year has been especially hard as we've been moral witnesses to the massacres in Gaza. I've thought of him, wondering if this was the pain he knew too well. When we watched Palestinians displaced from one end of the Gaza Strip to the other, I wanted to ask him how he found the strength to walk all those miles decades ago and leave everything behind. But in this pain, I've also witnessed something profound. A beautiful, multi-faith, multiracial, and multi-generational coalition rising from despair within our Democratic Party. For 320 days, we've stood together demanding to enforce our laws on friend and foe alike to reach a ceasefire, end the killing of Palestinians, free all the Israeli and Palestinian hostages, and to begin the difficult work of building a path to collective peace and safety. That is why we are here, members of this Democratic Party committed to equal rights and dignity for all. What we do here echoes around the world. They'll say that it's how it's always been, that nothing can change, but remember, Fannie Lou Hamer shunned for her courage, yet she paved the way for an integrated Democratic Party. Her legacy lives on, and it's her example we follow. But we can't do it alone. This historic moment is full of promise, but only if we stand together. Our party's greatest strength has always been our ability to unite. Some see that as a weakness, but it's time we flex that strength. Let's commit to each other to electing Vice President Harris and defeating Donald Trump, who uses my identity as a Palestinian as a slur. Let's fight for the policies long overdue, from restoring access to abortions, to ensuring a living wage, to demanding an end to reckless wars and a ceasefire in Gaza. And to those who doubt us, to the cynics and the naysayers, I say, yes, we can. Yes, we can be a Democratic Party that prioritizes funding our schools and hospitals, not for endless wars. That fights for an America that belongs to all of us, Black, brown, and white, Jews and Palestinians, all of us, like my grandfather taught me, together.
That's beautiful.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. That's beautiful.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
for that.
sharing that. And
Wow, what a terrorist there. Boy, I'm glad they didn't let her speak. Oh.
Yeah, she was definitely repping Hamas, But in any case, the reason why we show you this is because they want to silence her voice, and they want to make it seem like this is just division, that they're trying to divide the Democratic Party. And you can see from the speech, and you can see from the work that they've done nothing but try to unite the Democratic Party and give people a real reason to want to be part of building, a party that's accountable democratically to its rank and file, to the people who actually ensure whether or not they get elected. And I think that I think that we have to be honest with ourselves, that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are both parties of racist imperialism and the ruling class, and they really always have been. But I think that we also need to fight the demoralization that comes from the kind of disrespect that this state representative in Georgia was treated with. that the whole uncommitted movement was treated with, and that Palestinian Americans and people who have family who have died and been injured in that region, who are American citizens, the kind of disrespect that they've been treated to. We have to not let it demoralize us from being silent or from ceasing to do the work that they've been doing. That work must continue. It must continue every day of this election. It must continue long after the election is over, because that's what the imperialist blood-soaked rulers of this country and of Israel want. They want us to be silent, and they want us to give up hope. But at the same time, we need to be honest with ourselves about what the stakes are in this election. Like I was talking before about Eric and myself never being in favor of any bosses agents running for or winning positions to lead in our union, because the union is a working class institution that is built by our sweat, blood, and tears, and is actually supposed to be representative of our class, and is supposed to organize our class's struggle, a struggle that never ends against the boss class to enforce our will upon them. It's a weapon of class struggle. The Democratic Party is not a weapon of class struggle, except in the opposite direction. It's a weapon of the ruling class to control us. However, it greatly matters. It greatly matters and greatly has an impact on what our institutions and our organizations are going to be able to do to defend our class and to wage class struggle against the boss class and enforce our will upon them. It matters in terms of democratic rights. It matters in terms of union rights. It matters in terms of freedom of speech. It matters in terms of the fact that if Donald Trump ever gets state power again, he will deport people like the speaker you just seen. He will seek to engage in weaponizing and deputizing psychotic white supremacist fascist forces with the seal of the federal government to go out and brutalize these protests, to go out and not just engage in McCarthyism of targeting and scapegoating people potentially for violence. Then the violence becomes very real. It becomes very immediate and very direct. And it means that a movement like this will not be able to have the influence that it will be able to have if the person who is the boss agent in charge of the ruling class is not someone dedicated to that kind of antisocial, racist violence. It matters that the Democratic Party is not a fascist party. It matters that they have a base in the working class, a base amongst the most oppressed workers, that they have to pretend that they fight against racism, that they have to pretend that they fight against sexism, that they have to pretend that they fight against homophobia and Islamophobia, because they have to maintain that base, because without that base, they cannot survive. And the fact that they are dependent upon that base makes them a weaker enemy. It means that demands can be made upon them and concessions can be forced upon them through our struggles. Nobody's saying that the struggles don't need to be much greater than what they are. But think about it from this perspective. People point to the Vietnam anti-war movement and the way they were able to eventually break the will of the U.S. military machine and force the United States to end the war and occupation in Vietnam. It took a long time, but a lot of people point to that as that's the work we need to be doing. Well, think about it this way. Did Lyndon Johnson talk about deporting the protesters? Did he talk about putting them in concentration camps? Did he talk about whipping up white supremacist violence to beat them off the streets? I'm not trying to prettify Lyndon Johnson. He's a blood-soaked imperialist monster and a racist, okay, and has tons of blood on his hand. However, there's a difference when the leader of the ruling class is committed to fascism. There's a difference when the leader of the ruling class openly says that violence is completely acceptable. When the leader of the ruling class is willing to use every tool in the arsenal of the power of the presidency to wipe out communities that protest and wipe out our democratic rights and our trade union rights. And that puts us in a very dangerous position to be able to lead the struggles that we all know are necessary. So I just wanted to open up the discussion. This is not, I see Kamala Harris just as I see Joe Biden. They are agents of the ruling class. But there are only two people who are going to be the chief executive of the ruling class. It's either going to be Kamala Harris or it's going to be Donald Trump. And I know that my class is in a better position to fight and in a better position to win battles and to force concessions with a weaker opponent in holding state power. Unfortunately, I wish we had better choices to make. We don't. We have to live in the world we live in and then fight for the world that we want. But we're not going to be able to fight for the world that we want if we make ourselves blind to the stakes, and if we allow ourselves to be sucked into an emotional response to a horrible situation. I can't tell anybody whose family members have died in Gaza or the West Bank or anywhere related to U.S. imperialism and what they do around the world. I'm not going to tell them, I'm not going to moralize to them and tell them that they have an obligation to vote for Kamala Harris. Ultimately, they're going to do what they've got to do. But at the same time, I'm not going to pat them on the head and say that I agree with the strategy, because I don't. And I think that the strategy has consequences. To get sucked into feeling like we have an ability to opt out in struggles that will determine the course of our future struggles. It's a tactical difference. It's not about me wagging my finger at them. It's about me disagreeing with the strategy. And I think that, we can respect people's decision and the right to make those decisions without accepting that we're going to be silent about what our differences are. I don't think that's helpful. And I think that that's that doesn't arm us for the struggles to come. It actually disarms us. And I think that's unhelpful. So anyway, I know I said a lot. So Eric, I want to open the floor to you, because I know you have differences, and I want us to be honest about what those are.
The differences are very, very subtle, but they are differences. Everything you were talking about, everything we listened to just now, still ties in, and I want to tie it into some of the comments, and I did highlight it on the screen, and that is Brother Yuri talked about how he wanted to bring up dangerous working conditions, the air quality in the subway tunnel.
Yeah.
And the union rep at the meeting said, well, just build up some seniority and you can pick out.
I'm just putting it up on the screen. This is the comment.
Yeah. And I want everyone to kind of take that in, because that goes right along with what I believe John is trying to explain. And that is the way the union rep responded to him was very much the way we're told, you got to vote in hope for the Democrats. And what I think you're saying, John, and what I appreciate the way you're saying it, is you explain it as we have a weaker opponent with a Democrat. Listen, I want y'all to just kind of take that in, because he's not saying we need to be Democrats. We need to believe in these great people, because they're our friends and our allies, and they're not. And John isn't trying to tell you that Trump is your friend or Kamala is your friend, or one's your friend and one's your enemy. Neither one works for us, and they never will. Okay? So he's coming at us with strategy. Billions of dollars are being spent on these wars billions. And when you listen to Kamala or Vice President Harris's comments in her speech, we're gonna keep on warring. That's
Yeah, she said she wanted the U.S. military to be as lethal as possible, lethal and efficient as possible.
This is blatant. Okay, so billions are going to war, while we, the people in this country, the workers, yeah, the immigrants too, are suffering unnecessarily because all that money is going over there. And Kenneth Murray commented, if the working class is to fight for free political representation in socialism, we must begin to think completely outside the parliamentary box. We need a revolution. And I have to say, revolution begins in here. That's where it begins, when we start transforming minds. And that's where my emphasis is, where I'm kind of like, electoral politics. I'm about dealing with what Yuri's talking about, working conditions. Let's fight. Let's go march on the boss. Let's do this. Let's do that. Right. And then Don Quixote says, boogeyman for president. Well, not U.S. president.
I ain't into U.S. president.
Yeah, I ain't into that.
Well, I mean, let me just respond to some of what you just said. Like, because I'm a revolutionary socialist. I believe that the working class needs to run society, and that the bosses are not going to hand us the reins of power and say, yeah, you guys take a chance to turn leading society. They're never going to give us or hand over that power. We have to take it from them. But if you want to talk about revolutionary socialists and what we believe, read Lenin, read Marx, read Engels, read Trotsky. It's not one time they talked about the need to vote for capitalist parties. It's dozens and hundreds of times they encourage working class people to vote against the Black Hundreds in Russia. Who's the personifications of what the Black Hundreds represented in Russia? A fascistic movement other than MAGA now. And they always said that we should use whatever rights we have. It's fundamentally disrespectful to those who fought and died for the right to vote, for the franchise, overwhelming majority of them people of color, not to use any and all weapons at our disposal is a matter of self-defense. We also have to be honest with ourselves that the consciousness in the working class right now is not there where we can change the balance of forces and begin to express the kind of class consciousness that we need to express. You see little precursors of the kinds of class consciousness that we need to build when you look at Shawn Fain and the UAW and the difference between the way he leads his union and seeks to lead the whole working class, and the difference between that and what the Teamster boss, Sean Scab O'Brien, who went to go fucking kneel before Trump at the Republican National Convention, and the way in which he speaks. You see little hints of what our class could be doing when Shawn Fain talks about a general strike on May 1st, 2028, no matter who the president is. Okay, when he organizes to get other unions to have the same contract expiration date, openly saying that they want to bring the bosses to their knees. They want to bring the billionaire class to their knees. Now, these are positive signs from a union leader. Doesn't mean he always makes the right decision. I think there are times when he's made big mistakes. However, it's an indication of the direction in which our consciousness needs to go in if we're going to start winning these battles. But the working class itself has not been mobilized in struggles, except for the small examples we can point to, like UAW, that radicalize workers and show them their power in real time and put them in a better position to win, not just now, but in the future. The majority of our class is not organized. The majority of our class does not think as the working class. They think as middle class. They think as individuals. Their overriding political perspective is cynicism, demoralization, dog-eat-dog realism, pragmatism. Oh, what can you do? Everybody's corrupt. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So I guess we just throw up our hands and never claim power, right? So we have a lot of false consciousness. We got a lot of backward consciousness in our class because they have the megaphone. They have the media. They have the educational system. They control all the reins of power in the state. They condition the transmission of self-hatred from 1,000 directions at every worker from the time they're born till the time they die. And we have to be honest with ourselves about that the balance of forces and the class consciousness, the current level of consciousness of our class is not there yet to win the kind of battles that we would have to win against all odds in an uphill battle against an openly authoritarian, fascist, white supremacist force that's armed to the fucking teeth already, let alone they ever get hold of state power. And we have to understand the danger and moralism and not wanting to get our hands dirty and not wanting to use any weapon because it's attached to these people who we despise is suicide. It's to not lead a self-defense now and wait for these massive struggles that are going to rock the world somehow and come out of nowhere or suck it out of our thumb and just hope, we just add water and we got a revolution is a fantasy. And it's fucking dangerous. We have to live in the real world. We don't want to live in the world that they've created, but we do. And we have to blaze a path of what are the next steps? How do we buy ourselves more time? How do we get from where we are now to where we want to go? And it's certainly not sitting on the fucking sidelines and saying it doesn't matter who the leader of the ruling class is, because it fucking well does. It matters. Ask PAC co-workers if it matters that Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States. Go ahead. Eric, you're on mute. You're on mute.
All right.
Okay, sorry.
Look, we heard Trump. We heard the Orange Man and Elon Musk in that interview.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they were Twitter talking to each other, and he said, he said, "I'm gonna fire. You fire people on strike. Just fire."
Yeah, he
them.
liked it. He bragged about it. He complimented Elon on being somebody who fires striking workers.
Yeah, he's like, you're doing good, even though it's illegal.
Right.
In this world that we're in, it's still like, no, that's what I got to do. So how do we jive that? I want to tell Brother O'Brien, okay, yeah, God bless the man not to get his head blown off and just get a little nick on his ear, but what? Come on, and not that Kamala and Biden, they killed the would have been the biggest strike. The most significant strike in this country. They killed it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we really got to be realistic, And you said the members are the people in the country are cynical, and I kept thinking about the union members, right? We can't tell
Yuri's
the
talking
company
about
what
that.
to
Actually,
do.
I put the post up, the comment.
Yeah.
Yuri's talking about that.
Yeah.
Most people I work with have no idea about our last contract. Most members have no idea what's going on. The only time there's any noise is when they cut overtime.
But it's told to them by the union leadership.
Right.
We can't tell the company what to do. We can't tell them. Be
they
happy
say it
you
all
have
the
a
time.
job. Just be happy you have a job. Here, give me your grievance. I'll write it for you. It's just
when they say that, when they say we can't tell the boss how to run their business, I'm like, what is your purpose in life? I mean, why the fuck would you want to represent the union if you don't think the union can tell the boss how to run its business?
It's all of them. It's all of these presidents and vice presidents. They all say this crap, And a backward conscience, you use that word.
Yeah.
It's a backward conscience because it's indoctrinated into our coworkers. And that's why we say what we say every week and we do what we do every day, because we want people to understand you have been miseducated.
Yeah, and also, I mean, we want people to know where these ideas come from. So, when we talk about the billionaires behind Trump and where these ideas come from in Project 2025 and all of these things, it's
real.
not because we want to be. We're not doing the same thing that the Democratic Party is, which is the boogeyman routine. With the crying wolf 1,000 times about how mean and nasty and racist the Republicans are. They have cried wolf before, and they have offered us nothing while scaring the shit out of us about what the right wing has to offer. But the problem with crying wolf when it's not a house on fire situation or exaggerating somebody as a fascist who's not is very dangerous. It's because it's disorienting. Because then when it's really the house on fire, when they are really coming for us, when the wolf is at the door, people don't believe them anymore, and they don't trust anyone. And that's part of the problem, is that working class people don't trust anybody in the establishment. And that's part of the reason that Trump was elected, because they don't have any faith, because they've been sold so many lies. But we have to. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, good.
So I wanted to add to that how because the Democrats' racism is extremely covert, and you notice, John, they keep letting it out when they say felon. He's a felon. He's a felon. He's a felon. Because in this society, what happens, right? You got all these people with no opportunity, no nothing. They steal. We're not talking about Donald Trump kind of felon. We talking about us.
Yeah.
Working people or people trying to work.
Well, they spared no expense to get sheriffs on the stage and border patrol agents and Republicans and people who hate us on that stage, but they had no space for the voices of the oppressed.
Right. And that's what happens is you get locked, you get caught up in this damn system, and you become a felon. And then you get like at the CTA where I'm at, and you get it. The only way you can work there is in their so-called second chance program, where you're punished at twice the severity of everybody else. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. The other thing though too is that, like, if we're going to respect each other and we're going to have a frank dialogue, we need to call bullshit when people are engaging in false consciousness. It's not okay when my coworker's a Trumpster not to say anything, because that person's going to scab on you. That person's going to cross a fucking picket line. That person has such backward consciousness that's hateful of themselves that you ain't doing them any favors by not calling them out on how this doesn't match their values. They think it does, but it doesn't. It's false and mixed consciousness. And the way we change consciousness is not by accepting that we all have differences and we're all going to sing Kumbaya and say nothing about it. It's not okay. Look at what the role that unions played in the civil rights movement. Did they say, well, not everybody's for civil rights, so not everybody thinks about integrating schools is a good thing, so maybe we don't get involved, we counsel peace, and we stand on the sidelines and do nothing. Is that what Mike Quill did? No. And it mattered that Mike Quill had a socialist background. It mattered. It mattered because of the way in which he understood that that political issues are not separate from rank and file, so-called bread and butter issues.
Everybody got to read about Mike Quill. I'm reading his biography right now.
Yeah. Well, don't believe the hype either. I mean, he also handed people over to the government and the communist witch hunts during McCarthyism. So
I haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to put that in that biography, but
I'm not there yet. I'm only a third done with the book.
In any case, but he started out as in the Communist Party. But in the 60s and later on, he turns his back on that movement and handed them over to the government. So he also turned his back on something that you're very much in favor of free mass transit. That was the original position of the TW Local 100 from its inception, and even before it was established, that they were for free mass transit. And he turned his back on that for a wage increase. So they never spoke of it again. Never spoken of again after they were silent on that question to get a wage increase. But in any case, like, this is an ongoing discussion. You know, we generally try to keep things to about an hour, so we're not going to go much past that. We want the comments to continue, and if you disagree, you disagree, and we can have a frank discussion and an honest discussion about this. But the working class is what I would say is that we have to get out of the idea that the working class is going to abdicate its role in using whatever power it does have to influence the political field of who holds state power. It's just not in our interest not to be active and use our power to put our thumb on the scale, to change the balance of forces, to make demands, to force concessions. And we cannot do that if we're silent about who holds state power. If we're silent about having an opinion about which ruling class agent is going to control the ruling class. And if we can force on our enemies a weaker representative, it puts us in a better position to fight. It's not about moralism. You know, like, we can get all high and mighty and moralistic about it, that the Democratic Party is disgusting, is pro-imperialist, is racist, is controlled by the ruling class. But you can't cut off your nose to spite your face. Like, you can't ignore the fact that one outcome is going to happen, and which outcome puts us in the better position to lead the kind of struggles that we all need, not just to change the balance of forces, but to humanize ourselves through the course of those struggles. Do we want to have rights or not have rights and have to do it illegally? Nobody wants to be in a position where you have to go underground and be illegal about, or covert about, every little thing you do. It puts you in such a position of weakness and a fight for survival that it means that your struggles are less likely to succeed. It's just a fact. I mean, you know, we can not like that. We can not want to deal with that, but we have to deal with that. I mean, we have to deal with the reality of the world we live in. And if we're not able to explain how we get from where we are now to where we need to go, all the moralism in the world and all the finger wagging in the world and all the gnashing our teeth and names and epithets towards the Democratic Party is not going to do a goddamn fucking thing. It's only going to make us weaker and more divided. And it's only going to make us more hopeless and cynical. And it's going to continue to nurture the illusion that somehow we can opt out on struggles that fucking affect our lives. We cannot opt out. We cannot wash our hands of it. We cannot say we're not going to do anything. And that's my position. I understand people disagree, but we'll continue.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's excellent discussion, and we all grow too in our experience that we have, and when we listen to people, we grow. I have never missed an election since I was 18, and I make it.
I have. Please learn from my experience. I have.
Okay.
I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because I despised her.
Well, yeah, but I never voted for her either. I voted for some other third party. You know what I mean? I just do that kind of thing. You know what I mean? I've skipped out on union elections. I skipped out on the last one where I was elected, because I was so disgusted that no one would speak up about a accident that we had that was totally preventative on the yellow line. But anyways, I think that when I approach it and I say these politicians, it doesn't make a difference. What matters is what we do in our communities. And I say that possibly it could be reckless or careless, but my emphasis is always, what is your power right there in your community, at your school, at your workplace? Focus on that, because our coworkers and our neighbors are still thinking that if I vote for this person, things are going to be great. And that's not it. That's not how it works, and that's where I come from with that.
No, I understand. And
you're
that's a very real
right. You're still right. It's just maybe maybe we're looking at it from different sides of the mountain.
Well, I'm sure we are. I'm sure we are. But the other thing though too is that like I'm worried about the illusions that working class people have. I always have been. But you have to prioritize which are the most dangerous solutions to have. And the most dangerous solution to have is our sense of powerlessness. Okay, the most dangerous solution to have is that we'll always have these rights just because we have them. Now, the most dangerous solution is not fully comprehending how far the ruling class will go to secure their continued control of the economy and the world, and not sensing the danger in time. Like, just because we are the majority of society and we produce everything and we make the world run and we can make it stop tomorrow if we decided to, just because we have all that power, it doesn't matter if we don't use it. And you can say whatever you want about your community struggles and your on-the-job struggles. If you unite in common cause with other workers in a measure of self-defense against a fascist, racist piece of shit, don't you think that is going to provide solidarity between you, that's going to develop bonds of friendship and fraternal organizations and independent organizations? Like, I'm not for going out and being propagandists for the Democratic Party. I want to talk to workers as a fellow unionist. I want to go door to door talking to them as a part of community organizations that are encouraging a vote for Harris, but not for the reasons that the Democratic Party puts out there, for reasons of working class self-defense, educating them of the nature of the threat. But you're never going to solve or wipe away all the illusions the working class has like this right now in any moment, but especially in a moment of low struggle. You're not going to erase that. It's not going to happen like that. It happens through struggles. It happens through our shared experiences. That's the only way that workers will see their own role in things, that will see their own class power. And even though this is not a class struggle, the working class mobilizing and enforcing its will on the bosses to make sure somebody like Donald Trump never holds state power is something that can bolster our morale, especially when workers know they did this. They did this together. That Kamala Harris couldn't do a fucking thing if it wasn't for the working class saying, hell fucking no, he will never hold state power. That racist piece of shit will never hold state power. He will never be able to deputize people with the protection of the federal government to break strikes. That matters. It just like every other experience we go through matters in terms of the morale and the conscience of the working class. But you're not going to keep people from having illusions in Kamala or in capitalism or in the USA or any of those things. Nobody is going to take a magic eraser and erase that from the current consciousness of the working class, except through our own activities, our own struggles, our own lessons that we learn through our own experiences. And to think that we can step over the steps that we need to get there and abdicate our responsibility to defend ourselves always on the job. If a boss attacks you, it's never optional for you to defend yourself. Well, he's a fucking boss. He's a scab. He's attacking us. He's telling us what he's going to do. And we're going to stand and do nothing? No fucking way.
He going to fire us if we strike.
Right, exactly.
That's
what put us in jail.
A coworker told me, he said, come on, you should vote for Trump. And I said, did you hear? Well, let me ask you this. Did you hear what he said about striking workers with Elon Musk? Well, okay, I need you to listen to that again, okay? So I guess there's a way that I deal with people too,
Yeah.
And I actually have a lot of respect from coworkers that are Trump supporters. And it's not because I'm saying let's not talk about it. No,
I found that too. It's mostly because of militancy. It's because they want somebody who's fearless and will take on the boss.
And that's what they keep
but they mistakenly think that Trump is fearless.
Right. He's not. He's a coward.
When in fact he's a cuck. He's a servant for other billionaires who are much richer than him.
And he's a flim flam man. He's selling you a box and it says new computer, and you're like, oh, good, and you buy it and you take it home and you open it up and it's empty. you know, I mean, you know, you just, what did I just get here? And then his, hey, it's got an invisible shield. You just give me $100, we'll unlock it. You know, I mean, he's really bad. So, you know, I and the coworkers, they tell me that, Eric, you're like Trump, man. That's why I love you. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you speak truth to power, right? Yeah.
Right. I'm just like, damn.
You're gonna drain the swamp.
You're right, drain the swamp.
Right.
God bless.
All I would say to my
God
coworkers is just be careful when an alligator tells you he wants to drain the swamp. You know, just be careful. You know? Consider the fucking source, okay?
The wolf wants
yeah, right. The
food
wolf is trying to save Red Riding Hood, right?
Yeah.
All right. But in any case, we've blown past an hour here, so I want to try to wrap things up. But we're going to be coming back. You know, we're actually our coalition, Local 100 Fight Back Coalition, is going to have a live stream tomorrow at 9:30, talking about the U.S.-Israel relationship and also the U.S. election. So we're going to go into a lot more detail on that live stream on Saturday at 9:30. But we'll be back next Friday at 7:30. That's going to be our regular time. I just want to read a comment that came up on the screen. Kenneth Murray said, "This is a rare time, a very rare opening, a chance that may come only once in a lifetime, a chance to take advantage of the deep divisions among the ruling oppressors and go after their whole system with the aim of bringing the whole thing down and putting something much better in its place." I wholeheartedly agree with Kenneth on that question. But in any case, like, us not thinking about these questions and us staying in our silos is not going to help us. And it's not going to help us to be dishonest with each other and not explain the consequences for certain tactics and certain strategies. And we have to politically educate ourselves to think as working class people, to begin to think class consciously and to begin to act and move class consciously in a way that will inspire faith and confidence, not just among working class people, but among all of society. The working class has to lead society. The only way we're going to lead society is if we have arguments that actually provide real solutions and real ways forward for working class people and for all of us. So in any case, I thank you all for your comments, and we hope to continue the comments, and we'll continue to respond to the comments, and we'll see you all next week. And we thank you, everybody, for their time. Thank you, Eric, for your time. And
Thanks,
we'll talk real soon.
It's always a pleasure, brother.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.
All right. Good night, everybody.